Record. And we're here with Fangirl Chat, and it's Trisha Barr, and I'm here with Teresa Delgado, and we're having a topical discussion today on where to get our Star Wars news and how to get involved. How are you doing, Teresa?
I'm good. So excited to actually talk about how to get into fandom, because it can be tricky.
It can be tricky, but it's fun, and you make new friends. So when I moderated the panel at Geek Girl Con last month, one of the people in the audience stood up and asked the question, how do you get involved in the Star Wars fandom? She felt like she was sort of isolated, maybe, where she lived, or didn't know any other Star Wars fans. But I usually find out that there's Star Wars fans near you and you just don't know it. So how do you connect? And one of the biggest ways, and I think that some people are intimidated, is by jumping into, and this is what all the panelists said, just jumping into Twitter. And Teresa, you use Twitter too, so do you find it's a good way to meet Star Wars people?
I think Twitter is one of the best ways to, network with other fans, whether it be for Star Wars, or anything in your fandom, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, whatever it is. And it's just a really good medium because you, in a way, can have conversations with people and still be able to, I don't know, if you don't really maintain an anonymous, like you would if you were on a message board or something like that, an anonymous profile, but people start to learn what you like to talk about based off of the things that you're talking about with other people. And so that's how you end up getting followers. And I will say that probably the trickiest part to it is learning how to use hashtags and how to use hashtags appropriately to help with that, to find content, find other Twitter users to follow, or even just being able to share the content that you're trying to get out there for people to find you.
Exactly. That is definitely knowing. And sometimes the businesses or the franchises pick crazy hashtags that the fans don't want to use, which is always funny to see how they'll say, well, we're going to use this hashtag, even though, they have this incredibly long hashtag that people don't want to use. But if I believe for episode 7, it is actually hashtag Star Wars 7, the Roman numeral 7 is what the official hashtag is. Some people still use hashtag episode 7, but the official one is Star Wars 7, just for people. There you go. That's your first lesson learned.
Which, in a weird way, I'll say I actually don't like, because I never know which way Roman numerals go, and I always get them backwards. And the other thing is sometimes when these, the franchises themselves, whether it be a TV show or, a movie or whatever, when they pick their hashtag and it's something really long, you only have 140 characters, and half of what you're trying to tweet about is taken up by your hashtag.
It can be a little bit like, well, I only have 100 characters left, because, yes, especially I've noticed that on, Dancing with the Stars, sometimes you get really long ones. And
oh, yeah, I can give you a couple of those, like, while we're talking, since it's on. But, I think the best thing with Dancing with the Stars, I can't believe we're talking about this, but I do watch this show, is that it's DWTS, and that's awesome, because then it's not very long, but then you end up with Team Jack, or Team Bill, or Team whoever, and then, it just goes crazy. Especially if you've got one of the Russians that's the professional dancer, and that's the name they're using.
Yes, well, one of the things, the things about Twitter is you can put your full name, or you could just put your first name. Not for you would have a @ whatever your handle is. And you'll see mine is @ Fangirl Cantina, and Teresa's is
@ Ice Cold Penguin.
And those sort of are names that define sort of where sort of, something that's personal to us. So you don't, sometimes people like to pick like a Jedi or I'm a Darth something, or mine is Fangirl Cantina because a lot of my friends, we all hang out in a little message board. It's called the Lomanale Cantina and was mostly fangirls. So Fangirl Cantina, it was a way I started to just get social presence for that little message board so people could sort of find it. And it's evolved into me, and I use my full name, Trisha Barr, on it so people know who I am. And Teresa, you use your full name too, right? When it can come up, but some people can, you could just put, Trisha, so they would just know your first name and it would pop up with your handle, or you could just say, a Star Wars fangirl, or whatever you wanted to, until you felt comfortable in the Twitter universe. So, and you can also block people, and you can have limited access so people can't necessarily retweet, or only people can respond that you had already become following, that kind of stuff. So there's different levels of being in Twitter.
Yep. And the world of Twitter is called the Twitterverse. But yes, I do use my full name, but that's just because of what I do with the websites that I work for and things like that. But I know some people change them around holidays, and I saw some of my friends that did that for Halloween. They changed the name that showed up, or some of my friends that are big Disney nuts like me, they do the little circles and the O for Mickey Mouse head next to their name. And then some people, I don't know if you've noticed this, but they have like emoticons next to their names, and I have no idea how they do that.
I don't know either, to be honest. So it's one of those things I'm like, I'll learn it one day. I'll play stupid and ask them, but eventually, or maybe somebody will hear this and say, this is how you do it. That was one of the things with jumping into message boards, was learning all the little shorthands and what different things meant. And you don't have to feel like stupid to ask, because usually people will tell you, or sometimes you can Google stuff. Someone said the other day, in case you missed it, so ICYMI is what a lot of bloggers use to retweet something that they've tweeted already to get it back out there. So someone who was a big Twitter user is like, I finally figured out what that meant. And
yeah, I had to Google that.
So it's on, I don't see it as much now. It was bigger like a year ago, but the fan follow, or Friday follow? Follow Friday, where people would put people that they follow with the hashtag FF. But you'll see different days, people might pick a, shout out Thursday or whatever with the hashtag.
Thursday. Oh, that's Facebook. Yeah. Sorry. Wrong social media platform.
You get them all confused. I don't know what it is anymore. But I found too that, especially people who are sometimes intimidated, by the message boards, or have had bad experiences on them. Some people have, and you sometimes hear these, even Ashley Eckstein from her universe has mentioned that a lot of women that she met early on felt like they were intimidated in the message board situations, that they didn't feel that was necessarily a safe place. Twitter's not like that. Not to say that you don't ever see things get, every once in a while, emotions get high, but I found that there's no behind the scenes moderating platform that's deciding who can and can't talk. You have a voice on Twitter, and really you sort of govern whether people want to follow you or converse with you based sort of on, they see you, and if you seem like someone they would want to approach and talk, then, they'll respond back, or if you put up something that's interesting. But one of the easiest ways is just to find people that you're interested in and respond to something that they say that interests you, and eventually you end up in a conversation. So I remember during March Madness on StarWars.com when they had the brackets voting characters against each character, and it ended up like there were 6 people that we ended up in this through the whole, it was, almost a month of voting, that we were all, promoting our favorite character and saying, oh, I'm so glad that, Leia won the vote or Ahsoka won the vote. And, so it ended up, you can end up having conversations with people that you might not ever have had a conversation with.
Right. And, we might want to back up just to sort of help people figure out how to even get on Twitter. And I know this sounds dumb, but you go to twitter.com and then you make your account and you can change your background. And so I have a picture of Star Wars. And you put in your profile picture. If you don't put in your profile picture, then your picture will be like a little egg, I think is what it is.
Yes, you're the egg.
You're the egghead. And then the best thing to do is it'll walk you through some things of how to finding followers, whether it's by interest or by celebrities, those kind of things. But there's also a search bar at the top of your homepage, and you can literally just either type in a hashtag, which how a lot of people, you find them that way. So if you were a Harry Potter person, you would type in hashtag Harry Potter, and it will bring up results that you can either search for by people or actual tweets or photos, and you come up with all of this stuff. And right now there's like lots of pictures and stuff about the Big Bang Theory that's showing up with Harry Potter, which is interesting. But the first things that come up with people are some of the celebrities from the film and things like that. But if you keep looking through, the more people you add, Twitter will give you suggestions of who to follow. Other people that follow the same things you do, or some of the people that you're currently following who they follow will pop up there. And that's actually, a really good way to find stuff that way. If you do Star Wars right now, I'm actually curious. What pops up when I type in Star Wars? Stuff about the Thomas Kincaid paintings are still popping up. Trisha?
I know, it's been like 4 days now. Thomas Kincaid was stormtroopers, Thomas Kincaid, essentially every which way Star Wars, which is really kind of cool. So sometimes you get to see the totally most random things, and they're, things that you might not have missed otherwise, which is great with Twitter. So.
Right, so there's a lot of stuff that you can find on there. And you find a lot of the, reputable news sites. And also, if you want to follow a celebrity, one of the things to look for is the little light blue circle with a check mark. And that means that it's a Twitter certified person. So if it's, for instance, let's say Carrie Fisher, it'll have a little circle with a blue check to know that that's her actual Twitter account. Because there are people who have made Twitter accounts for celebrities, and it's not their real account, and so they started this thing of having Twitter verified or Twitter certified or whatever it's called. People.
Yeah, I think Carrie Fisher is Carrie F. Fisher on Twitter is the real Carrie Fisher, and she does tweet. So she tweeted on October 31st. I see. Star Wars is at Star Wars. Easy.
Yep.
Twitter verified. And there's a lot of other, there's a lot of Clone Wars, the voice actors on Twitter, and Mark Hamill is on Twitter. He's Hamill himself.
Yep. And let's see. Well, Dave Filoni's not verified, but he's Dave _Filoni, Filoni.
Yes, so you can find a lot of, people on Twitter that, and also with just a lot of the younger actors seem to be engaged in that. One of my favorites is not younger, but Nathan Fillion.
Mm-hmm.
He's very funny, and Josh Whedon occasionally pops on can be quite a hoot too. So, and Bad Robot has a Twitter account, and they occasionally will tweet some stuff.
I like looking at George Takei's tweets.
Yes, George Takei's. So that's always fun because you can see what the big celebrities are doing, and then you can also learn to follow. I use lists. Do you use lists?
I do. I use lists on not on. Well, I I guess if we're going to talk about lists, talking about apps is probably appropriate as well. I use lists or I save searches on my apps on my phone and also on my computer because I actually tend to not be on Twitter.com usually. Usually I'm looking at Twitter through TweetDeck on my Mac or TweetBot on my phone. So I have columns for hashtags and things like that.
There you go. So, yeah, you can search with the hashtags is one way to do it. And lists are an easy way. I had someone ask me once, they're like, once you get so many followers, and if you're following a lot of people back, then your feed will just runs by so fast. You miss a lot of stuff. So I have, and some people have public lists that they put up that anybody could go say, oh, that news site has, their Star Wars list or whatever. I have my Star Wars list that I have separate, news sources. So I have like Club Jade and Jedi News, and then I'll have some of the entertainment places that report on Star Wars news that I know, the Hollywood Reporter. But I also have those type of places broken into a separate list, which is my entertainment list, because I have other things. I follow movies and that kind of interest that aren't necessarily Star Wars. So I have the entertainment list. I also have a publication list where I seem to have a gazillion. It seems like everybody in the publishing world is on Twitter, the agents, the book publishers. And so, I mean, even just following there's Random House, and then there's Del Rey Spectra, and then there's Del Rey Star Wars that you can follow. So you end up realizing that there's so many different, even within a company. I think like Lucasfilm Animation has their own Twitter handle, so you can, Disney has
a million. Like if you want Disney Parks, that's at Disney Parks. If you want Disney Films, I don't know, but it's something else. If you want D23, that's something. If you want Disney XD, I mean, you'd have to follow 20 different Disney accounts just to cover Disney. And then if you want to go off on a tangent and follow Disney people, good Lord.
Well, but the good thing is that actually if you have a specific interest in Disney, like Disneyland or Disney World or, whatever it is, or their animation, you can follow just that Twitter. But if you do have broader interests, or if you just want to know broad Disney news, they do have, a Disney, just at Disney. So, but the lists help when you start following a lot to sort of break down the feeds. And then when people, sometimes you see tweets you don't understand, but they might be intriguing, or it's somebody who you follow, your interest in what they say, you can click on expand if there's a conversation. It's usually right underneath the tweet itself. And you can click on that, and then you'll be able to see if people were replying to each other, where the conversation started and how it ended up. So, those are some of the things you learn as you go. So we're trying to teach you things that we learned the hard way.
And this is actually interesting because you brought up lists, and I'm on my TweetDeck right now, and I realized that I do have a Star Wars list, but it only had 28 people on it. And as you're talking, I'm adding people to my Star Wars list.
There you go.
I completely forgot that I had that. Thank you.
And then, there's obviously tweeting. You can only use 140 characters, and Twitter will tell you when you're getting to the end of your 140. And there's all sorts of tweet longers and all sorts of other ways you can do that. And then you can favorite something, which means I liked what you said, and it saves a record. Twitter saves a record of things that you favorited, which I use favorites, especially like if I see something that I don't have time to read, but I want to go back and look at it. I use my favorites because I don't necessarily want to retweet something until I've read it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't want to look like that's one of my rules. Don't retweet something unless you've read it.
Yep. And I'm the same way. I use it as more of like a little bookmark.
Yes,
type of thing.
A bookmark. And if I want to tell, like if someone will respond to you, but you don't really, there's not really anything to say except thanks. That's one of the tips of make sure when you tweet, it's not just like a bunch of thanks or stuff like that in your feed, because people will just see a bunch of one words and they'll, they won't find it interesting. I do say thank you on occasion, but sometimes if it's already been a back and forth, I'll just favorite so they know that, I appreciated whatever they said, like a fan follow or something.
I do that too.
And then, and then you can retweet what somebody said, which is sort of saying, oh, hey, people, look at this, or interest me, or it's cool news and I just want people to know. But that's my personal rule is don't retweet until you've read it, just to make sure, because, every once in a while there'll be something that it looks like their tweet is saying one thing and it's saying something completely else. And everybody knows that from reading headlines, but.
The only time I do that is if the link goes to Facebook, and if I'm on my phone doing it, then it makes me log into Facebook and all this other nonsense, so I can't actually see it. So I just go, whatever. I retweet it. But that's the only time I ever do that, because the Facebook link is so annoying.
So do you have any other advice for people? Because I think we've gone through the basics, and it's not that intimidating, and you end up meeting people and having conversations in sort of, in a safe environment that you don't have to worry about your, meeting the creeper or whatever. So,
I think people just need to go out there, get on it, start following people. You don't even have to tweet anything. Just follow people and see what people are saying. If anything, use it as a medium to get news, to find people in your community. And I don't even mean in the community you actually live in, but people in your fan community of the things that you like. And then once you get comfortable enough to start tweeting, start putting yourself out there. And you'll be surprised, because someone will come up to you at a con and say, hey, you're at Ice Cold Penguin, right? And I'm like, yes. What? But it happens. It happens.
Well, you never know. You might find out that the person you're tweeting with is not that far away from you, or, they're going to be at Star Wars weekends, or they're going to be at something, they're going to be at Celebration if you're going, or you might meet people and feel like, oh, I would feel better about going to someplace like Star Wars Celebration because the convention, because I actually know some people now. I've talked to them on Twitter. So that's our brave, wise world and how to jump into Twitter. I also say that I learned about a lot of major news events on Twitter before they broke it on the...
Yep.
So it's, you have to take everything, as with anything on the internet, with a grain of salt. But typically, a lot of I learned about the tsunami in Japan on Twitter, like at least 10 minutes before it came up on the networks. And, and obviously the big Star Wars Disney news last October,
yeah.
I learned on Twitter, and I was sort of like, what? My Twitter feed's going crazy. What is happening?
Well, first it went Twitter, and then it went Facebook, and then my email and my computer had an overload.
Yeah. And the text message.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the especially if you want to catch up on news, and you want to keep on top of it, it's really an easy way to keep on top of it with the hashtags and following some of the main sites. So anyway, we're going to wrap up this discussion, and if you ever have a question or you want to say hello to somebody, we are always there on Twitter, and we like to say hello to people and have conversations, so you don't have to be afraid of us. And again, for Trisha Barr, it's at Fangirl Cantina.
And for Teresa, it's at Ice Cold Penguin. And hey, Trisha, before we go really quick, give them one Twitter person they should follow.
Oh, well.
I have one.
I would say Club Jade for Star Wars news. That would be my person to follow.
And I would say at Jedi News UK.
Yes, another great site. So yes, Club Jade is one word, Club Jade, and Jedi News UK, just like that. And so there we go. So this wraps up this episode of Fangirl Chat, talking about Twitter, and we'll be back with more chat.